Hi, it's Maria, and I'm doing um, another video in the Forgiveness to Love series, and this is number 17. And this one's called And the Spiritual Lesson Is. And so in the last video, I think I was pretty spiritual. That was what we were talking about mainly. And in this one, I want to continue that. At the same time, I want to make sure that you get the nitty-gritty details of it, because it's only through that, through seeing and hearing those details, that you can then relate your own life to it. Because rather than, um, a spiritual preach fest or whatever it is, in any event, I wanted you to really understand the nitty gritty of life on planet Earth, in this third dimension in the year 2022, and before and beyond. And so here, I've focused mainly on the group of three who have been most instrumental in causing me um, unceasing angst, if I can be so kind as to put it that way. And they've been focused on destroying me, actually. And there were three people, and they were an ex. And in fact, he's been an ex for 21 years. And what's funny about that is that I was married to him for 21 years. So I got married in 1980. The 5-year divorce ended, or 4-year divorce, 5-year, I don't know. It ended in 2001. And here we are in 2022. So it was, yeah, 21 years married, 21 years divorced. And I'm under the understanding that, in fact, he died. I don't even know when, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. Someone even mentioned maybe 11 years ago, but I don't think that that's true. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter, except for Social Security benefits that I'm due. So then it matters, but I haven't gotten those yet. And you might have heard about that in the other videos, because if we are all entitled to something like that, does everyone get them, or just a choice handful of people? And why? Who controls that? Why are some death certificates hidden or lost? And I was told over and over that it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that they couldn't find it. And I have gone in as many directions as I can possibly go with that, from the Cook County Clerk to the Illinois Department of Public Health to governors and state representatives and U.S. congressmen and anybody I can find, and attorneys and people that are in the know and whatever. And two private investigators I hired too, and nobody can seem to find him. But that's just the way it is. But in terms of what the three, and he passed on the baton to the sibling and the son, which is that's my understanding of what happened. And it's not just dozens of people that have been involved in the surveillance of me over the course of the last, 21 years and beyond. He was probably stalking me beyond then. But it's not dozens of people. It's not even hundreds of people. It's thousands of people. Can you even imagine? All over the globe. It's just the most ridiculous thing in the whole world. I couldn't have ever imagined it. And they've been paid from my inheritance. They've been paid from that payroll to terrorize me. I mean, how horrible is that? It's like you paying someone to hurt you. Yeah? Except someone else controls your money. And so they just keep coming at you. And so I just can't even imagine. Can you imagine being paid to actually hurt someone? I mean, unless you're some kind of a mercenary or hitman and that's your profession. But for normal people, for people in integrity that wouldn't ever dream of harming another human being on that level, I I'm speechless, actually. Um, Especially when you don't even know that person. Or perhaps you've just been fed lies about that person, and yet you're going to go and cause that person pain. Anyway, all I can say to that is enjoy your karma because there is no other, there is nothing else I can say to that. And these are also known as the flying monkeys. And the flying monkeys are from the Wizard of Oz, and they are those monkeys that fly around and screech and do all this dirty work, and they're kind of clueless, and they do all the dirty work that the Wicked Witch of the West doesn't want to do, right? And she wants to hurt people, and yet she just kind of calls them, and they just go around doing it, and they're kind of oblivious to life, because they have such tunnel vision on what their job is, which is to create havoc and pain. So and contrast that to kindness and goodness and love and gentleness. You know, that's what we're here for. And so, with the evil and the spiteful agenda of the dark, um, it helps us. This is key. It helps us see who we are and see who we are not by virtue of the by virtue of the notion of contrast, right? Because many of us have felt the presence of the dark energy, right? And the dark energy is threatened by the light because to them, the light is unfamiliar and uncomfortable and it exposes them. And remember, just like a cockroach likes the dark because they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be exposed. And the dark is like that as well. They do kind of all of their um, their backroom deals kind of in secret. But that doesn't mean that because they don't like the light, that we dim our light for them. On the contrary, we shine even brighter, and we sparkle, and we sparkle in all our brilliance, right? And so when others commit criminal acts that don't jive with our vibe, kind of, then that's confirmation that we really are doing what we are here to do, which is to glow and sparkle, right? In all our brilliance. And so I've been told of countless setups by the three, individually and collectively, to throw me under the bus. And I when I said that, I realized that I don't know that I ever talked about the Greyhound bus injury, the traumatic brain injury that I sustained with a bus door being shut deliberately by the bus driver. He shut the door, he pushed the button and shut the door, and it hit my head, and then it threw me to the left side of my body where I hit the side of the bus, and on the left side of my face and head and body. After which I then collapsed and probably lost consciousness. I don't really remember, but yeah, that. So when I lose my train of thought, sometimes it is because I am still recovering from that. And that just happened 2 years ago. That happened in June of 2019. Almost. Yeah, it's almost 3 years now. But sometimes, it's a challenge for me to stay focused. So if I digress, I do apologize ahead of time for that. But I'm getting so much better. For a while, I was stuttering and I couldn't remember anything. But things have improved significantly. And so, anyway, so I think we have to understand that no matter what the money, how much money is there, the fame or the power, the control that they seek, the dark, the karma is inevitable for the dark. And so all we can do is just release it all to God, to the universe, to the energy of all creation, right? To the infinite intelligence of the universe, to all that ever was, all that is, and all that shall ever will be. And so I personally can only take care of Maria, and you personally can only take care of you, and then allow the higher powers um, to take care of anything and anyone that could possibly come against us. And don't just believe that, but actually have a knowing of that. And so, sometimes we're not to be afraid, we're not to wallow in negative energy, right? Because that's not for us. Uh, that's not for those of us in integrity to lower our vibration and to go to that lower level. Some people that are walking on this planet happen to be cold blooded killers, right? Some people have addiction. Some people, there are all kinds of different people that compose the human collective. And so, in terms of who was responsible for, like, the murder of my parents, um, and that is exactly what I believe happened to them, so I don't have to prove it. But there are people on both sides of the law, I believe. And so, who was involved in that cover up? Who knows, And will we ever know? Again, I don't know. That would have to be an act of a miracle where we would get that information. For now, you know, we're not going to think about that because yes, of course, there are murderers out there, and yet there are good people, and there are innocent people, and there are people who help and who give and who love, like my mother and father. And so um, some people want to win at any cost and do anything to anyone at any time. And that's not who you are. And that's not who I am. And so for the rest of us, the lost souls refuse to let in the light, right? And yet we all have choices. And every minute we are given an opportunity to choose better. Yes, and to choose wiser. And so I ask you, how can you not feel forgiveness for these people that are so lost? Because they just can't help who they are. They show us who we are and who we are not. And we don't want to be them. And we don't want to have any of their attributes. We don't want to have that emotional torment that must actually be occurring within the confines of their own mind, because it's a scary place to be enshrouded by so much darkness, right? And so leave them behind, and you can't save them. And so you must focus on yourself and on your beauty inside and out, and on your goodness, and on your kindness, and on your gentleness, and on love, because that's what you're made of. That's what we're all made of. And so when you love, you help. And when you hate, you destroy. And so the answer is to love, 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 and love some more. And I'm not being trite. I actually do believe that. At the same time, I must reveal to you the details of the struggle that I have been going through and the details that many others have been going through, because we're not so oblivious to life and just say, okay, everything is just fine and it's all love and light, and we see the soul of the person that is behaving like a total ass and a criminal. And yet, yes, we do see the soul. We understand that when you peel that onion, yes, there's the soul. However, that behavior can no longer be condoned. And there have just been too many backroom deals and too much corruption and too much this and favors and secrets and things being hidden for so very long. And that just can't go on anymore because it is it's a malignancy and it destroys everything it touches. Think of all the people who are affected by, yesterday I talked about the Why Me thing, the Why Me movement. And yes, there were so many actors and actresses who were affected by that. And so once that was exposed, then, and the people were called to accountability, to possess accountability. Sorry, it's about midnight here. Um, to possess some accountability for their behavior, then things turned around. And so, therefore, I feel I have an obligation to share what is really a horrific story, and yet at the same time, it's a beautiful story because it is so obvious and it explains what I've become so passionate about, which is truth and goodness and kindness and giving our best and trying to be our best at every moment of every day, and helping and serving and giving rather than taking. And so when we can turn that around and know that that's what we're really about, it's not about focusing on the darkness and the horrible things going out in the world. It's about focusing on the sweet little acts that we can all participate in and change the world one day at a time, one person at a time, one event at a time. And so, when I think of oh gosh, I don't know. Um, anyway, many of us have been controlled by negative reinforcement. And if we exposed certain things, we probably would. It probably wasn't time before, and yet now it seems as if the energy of the planet is such that that it's happening all over the world, actually, which is just such a magnificent thing. And so there are, when I would expose things earlier, like when I wrote that letter that I had that $10 million verdict for, I was exposing what I had experienced, what I had been told about my experience, what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, what I knew. And yet I was totally slammed. And so that I understand that the world wasn't ready for that type of expose. At the same time, it also allowed me to experience more legal drama so that I can really share this saga of 21 years with you to better explain what goes on in many areas of our government, of our society, of our political system, of the collective. And so when I think of the computer issues I've had, oh my God, I think of the phone issues that I've had. You wouldn't even believe it. And of the professional looking men who stalk me. And they go from that extreme to kind of like the street thugs, who stalk me. And so, and they, I don't know who, but someone, they enter my residences and have for years. And if I exposed that stalking, then I'd be punished and I'd be followed even more. And so that's kind of the negative reinforcement that that I had mentioned, is that it's very good at, we gag ourselves actually, because it's very successful in allowing us to be fearful, right? And encouraging us to be fearful, and in fact, demanding us to be fearful. Because if we aren't fearful, then the stakes get higher. So, I remember being encircled by a convoy of 9 pickup trucks, or pickup trucks. You think of those old beaten up trucks, but these were like nice big, I don't know if they're like Silverados or Titans or whatever they are, I don't know the different brands, but it's the Chevy Silverado and the other ones. The I don't even remember what they're called, but you know those big trucks. And I'll share a little story with you now because I like to do stories because I think it really helps explain things. And then you can say, oh, I have a story kind of like that. Or just I'll switch this and this around and that's my story. And now I get it. Okay. So anyway, the man that whom I had met in Brazil and I traveled cross country with, after we lost the Florida condo that we were both living in. He was living there with me. And so we ended up going, I think I said, to North Carolina, and we stayed there a little while. And then we went to Maine. And then we traveled cross country to California. And I rented us an apartment there for 6 months. And it was just very, very, the stalking was really enough to drive somebody over the edge. And he couldn't take it. And I, unfortunately or fortunately, had been used to it, not to that extent, but I had been used to it. And so I realized that there was nothing I could really do about it. But he was really horrified by the whole thing. And so he ended up leaving. He was quite depressed, and so I gave him the keys to the car. I had bought us a car, and I was only glad to give it to him because I couldn't even afford the car anymore. And and then he left for France, and I went into homeless shelters. But that was another whole aspect to this incredible journey that I was so blessed in order to see that aspect of life on planet Earth. I mean, really, how many of us get to do that? Um, Actually, I guess the numbers are increasing, but let's see. So, I know he invited me to meet him in Las Vegas. I was in California, and he invited me to meet him in Las Vegas. And I had never been to Las Vegas because I just had no interest in that. I had been to Reno, but really didn't care for that either because I'm not a gambler. And so I kind of like a little more quiet situations. And I think that, it's just kind of not my cup of tea, but so many people just love it. So we made plans. He said he was unavailable that first night, and can only imagine. But the second, and so I didn't know where I was going to go because he was going to get us a hotel. And we made plans to connect then the following day. And so I knew I had to sleep in my car because I didn't have enough money to get a hotel room. And so I decided to park near a school playground, thinking that a residential neighborhood would be safe. So, and my location was well known via my cell phone and the vehicle dashboard navigation system that we all know about, the LED screen. Well, I was really creeped out when about half a dozen of these, it was interspersed. I mean, there were some trucks and there were also some cars and some SUVs, but they all kind of passed me on the street. I was parked, and they passed me on the street, and they would slow down, and it was so obvious. And then as soon as they passed my car, they would speed up. And then they all came and they parked near me. So one of them parked in front of me, one parked behind me, one parked across the street, one parked a block down. And so it was like they were encircling me. I mean, I was really creeped out because I hadn't been to Las Vegas before. I didn't know my way there. I didn't know what kind of area this was. It looked like a lovely residential neighborhood. But nonetheless, I didn't know. I just started driving and I saw kind of like, homes there. And I thought, okay, well, I'm kind of in a pinch here. So there seemed to be no limit, to the fleet of vehicles available to the stalkers. And so I kind of recognized, though, some of these vehicles. And all of a sudden, one guy got out of the car, and he had interesting footwear on. And I parked by a school, which was, there was a playground there. So one of these stalkers um, got out of the car, and he started, like, there was sand there. So he was walking in the sand, and he went the, um, up the slide and down the slide, and I think he was wearing gloves, and so he was doing the monkey bars, and he was doing whatever other, you know, whatever other rides and things like that there were there, and he was running all around. And I thought, oh, well, that's very interesting, and it seemed like he was leaving a lot of footprints, in the sand, and he was jumping up and down and kind of moving all around the playground. So there wasn't really an area that he had missed. And I was puzzled and I was confused. And I thought, that's very weird, really. And so I thought, oh my gosh. Then it struck me. And I thought, oh, I wonder if he's creating an alibi, just in case I should disappear, right? And so I knew I was in enemy territory in Las Vegas, because I had been told that my sibling has yet another residence there. And I think that's funny only because with her money, and then if she added my money to that, because I certainly didn't get my money, um, she'd be able to afford a residence in each of the 50 states, actually. And if I had her money too, plus my own, I could do that. And even with just mine, I could probably just do that as well. But in any event, I've been told that she describes herself as an event planner. And she does have a residence in Las Vegas. And let's just say that the events that she plans have to do with me, and they aren't exactly to make me happy. And they aren't, well, they kind of are surprise parties, actually, because I certainly am surprised generally by them, although that's not in the typical surprise party vein. And yes, she plans events that supposedly, are to contribute to my demise. Shall I put it in those words? I became terrified when I realized that, in fact, these stalkers were really stalking me, and they were getting a little too close, and I was going to sleep in my car. I don't think so. And it was late. And so I decided to, I started the engine, and I took off as fast as I could. And I'm sure that they were following me, or they can just see on Google Maps or whatever if they're connected on to a cloned phone, which I hear that they all have. And so I drove to a gas station, and there was a gentleman getting his own gas adjacent to mine, to my pump. And so I asked him, I said, I'm just traveling, and I don't know where to go. And I was to meet a friend, and that just didn't work out for tonight. And so is there like a 24-hour diner or 24-hour convenience store or something where I can go, where I can be safe, and maybe I can park where there's a light? I just need to, get a little sleep. And so he said, oh, don't worry. He said, I don't know of a convenience store, but there's a local bar just in this strip mall, in fact. And so, anyway, he was like a little angel. And so I think he could tell how terrified I was, and how I was like, oh my gosh, are you sure? And so he said, come on, I'll take you there, and I'll introduce you to the waitress. And so we did that, and then I met the people there, and one man, and they heard my story, and so one of the men there said, oh my gosh, you know what, I have a room, and I'm renting it, and so come with me. And he said, I'm divorced and I'm starting over, and so that's why I don't have that's why I just have a room. And so anyway, have a room for you. So I thought, oh my gosh, that was just so nice of him. And so I thought, well, what do I do? I decided that he too was an angel sent from heaven. And so I had to turn it around into that. And as it turned out, he was a great guy. And he even said, if you need to stay on a few more days, you're welcome to. So, and he was a perfect gentleman. And so it was nice to know that this terrifying story where I thought, oh my gosh, the guy's jumping around there because he's going to say, no, I wasn't there, or yes, I was there and I didn't see her, but I was on the playground. And, and so anyway, um, and so I guess I should say that I really do believe that my sibling was involved in that torturous event, because I was told that she had actually hired my friend, the one that I met in Brazil, the one that lived with me in my condo, the one that we traveled cross country with, the one that had invited me to Vegas. And so I'm not sure why he even went to Vegas or why we were to meet there, but I did hear that she hired him, and he flew all the way from Washington, I guess, to Florida. She hired him to do something in her home or something, and then seduced him. And anyway, I told they've gotten quite close, and so since she stalks me 24/7, I guess she wanted more than just, to read my emails. She wanted um, she wanted it all. And so I wonder what her husband thinks about that one, but that's really none of my business. Anyway, this friend that I just told you about is actually my twin soul. And so, for any of you that are familiar with twin souls, you would understand just how harrowing that journey is. And yet, it can be the most glorious uh, experience of this lifetime and beyond. Um, and yet, um, and yet, twin souls don't come together until they have healed on the 3D level. And so he needed to heal. I certainly needed to heal after hearing that one. Um, and so that's to fraternize. It's probably 1 in the morning or something, to fraternize with the darkness that has destroyed not only our relationship, but has taken every, every penny and you know, every, piece of underwear that we have, and put us both out on the street. I thought, I thought that was pretty weird. And I had to forgive my twin flame and forgive the sibling. And that's the only way I can deal with that kind of craziness, right? And so I'm sure you've had instances too where you think, oh my gosh, like, tell me that this can't really be happening. But yeah, some people are pretty insane, and they really do things that we would have never expected. At the same time, that's our test. And so we don't want to fail that test. We want to pass it with flying colors. And so we say, you know, I'm healed. I get it. That's on you. And from my understanding is that karma, has paid some visits. And so karma it's a universal law, and it's energy, it's physics. And so what you put out comes back to you, boomerangs back to you. And I speak about that in practically every video because I am such a believer in karma. And I think it's a fabulous, fabulous concept. And, God and the universe and the infinite intelligence of all uh, knew exactly what they were doing when they figured that one out, and that's all energy. Um, in and so now I want to kind of get into like the specifics. And so when I talk about the three, I talk about ex, the sibling, and the son. And um, sometimes, and I don't know who's involved in different things. I don't know if they work collectively, if all three, although after the ex died, then it would just be two. But my son is in the UK, so I don't know how involved he is. I think that the sibling is the one that kind of orchestrates everything. Oh, she's the event planner, right? I mean, how much more obvious can that be? And there are phone echoes, and there are people near me taking pictures, and they are watching me, and they are texting me. And so I had to forgive the three. I had to forgive their attorneys who hire the stalkers, and I had to forgive the stalkers. And not only just the real paid stalkers, but I mean people that I knew, people that I had assumed they were my friends, people that were neighbors, people that were acquaintances. And so these are kind of the innocent bystanders um, who were paid to betray me and to do whatever it is they were told to do, the flying monkeys. And so they were watching me and taking pictures and texting where I was. Oh, she just walked by. And they were plagiarizing my writing and then, tampering with my food, which was really devastating, actually, and sabotaging my plans to move forward and following my every move. And so you probably have heard this song too, because it's a good song, but when you think about it, it is pretty creepy. But I'll be watching you. I think it's by Sting. It's The Police. It's the it's sung by Sting when he was part of the Police. And so it's, every step you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you. And so that's what I felt like. And for 2 decades now, I've felt that, yeah, they're watching me. And it's not paranoia. My attorneys actually said that because I said, I must come across like some paranoid woman. And my attorney said, you're not paranoid when it's really happening. And they said, we know that it is, because he's actually confessed to a lot of that, to his own attorneys and to his own therapists. And so they then pass that along. And so anyway, it goes so far as to people even taking notes of what's in my grocery cart. And I'm not sure why they're doing that. If it's just, I don't know, kind of twisted inquisition, or if in fact they were um, buying things so that then they could, switch them for tampered versions. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. And um, and then we go back to the holiday issue. Every holiday is to bring some kind of cataclysmic situation um, going on. And usually it's about seduction. So I don't know if the sibling flies from one place to another, or if she just hires other women to seduce whomever I'm with. I really don't know. But I do know that they get texts and sometimes have to run an errand and stuff. And then that's the last they see of me. But anyway, life is bizarre, right? And so the goal of some people, and I know we don't even like to hear this because we don't want to believe this, but the goal of some people is actually to push us over the edge. And so, they say the suicide rate is climbing. Well, um, I, speaking from my own experience, and hopefully this is yours, that's not something that we would ever even consider, right? And so, if in fact anyone should ever even mention that, um, that would be um, a plot and a plan where that my family would certainly be behind that, because I would never consider that. And I pray that you would never consider anything like that as well, because you have to turn this around into something that is for your growth. Things that happen to us don't really happen to us; they happen for us. And if you can really, really embody that, and you can really sink your teeth into that one, things that happen for us. It's for our growth. It's for our soul expansion. And so even though, I'm telling you all this stuff and it sounds really creepy, it's made me the person I am today. And so, and yes, I can say, oh, brain injured and all, but you know what? I have actually done some of my very best writing since then. Of course, I healed for 2 years, and it was as if my head were in a box, and I had to have the lights very dim, and I didn't like a lot of music, and I didn't like loud speaking and things like that, and noises. Um, but you know what? That really allowed me to go within. So I can turn that around into a blessing as well. And and so that's the key. The key is to see everything that we've gone through as a blessing, not to condone anyone's behavior and not to say, okay, bring it on. Absolutely not. But the things that we have gone through, either we can allow them to destroy us or we can overcome them and say, I get it. It happened, and I'm moving on. And I'm going to use that experience for my betterment. Yes. And so, well, I don't even want to talk about that. Different thoughts are running through my mind here. Um, but I know that my sibling has, used a false ID, right, in order to sell my property. You can't do that unless you forge a signature and have a false identity. And I have also heard that people have used a false identity in order to buy life insurance policies on me. And I had actually heard that perhaps someone had actually uh, faked being married to me so that if in fact something happened to me, they could claim a life insurance policy. And so, I mean, does it get any weirder than that? And so it's the dark's agenda, and everything is a test. And so the question is, what will you choose? You know, that I understand that surveillance of me has been a full-time job for hundreds, over the course of a long time. And there's been strategic torture. Now, why? Because I wrote the letter. So far, that's what some people claim, is that it's because I wrote the letter. Well, I wrote the letter because I was in fear of my life, and authorities had recommended I do that, and I don't regret that at all. Do I? Uh, do I realize that yes, that caused a lot of pain for me in terms of my losing my resources. But again, not a dime of that judgment was to go to was to be taken from me. So it was just all kind of a lot of deals and things going on that I didn't even know about and that I didn't understand, and that things have to be transparent now. We are living in a different time where it's about truth and honesty and loyalty and goodness and gentleness. And so we've endured a lot of this hidden people with hidden agendas and betrayal and backstabbing and lying and cheating and thieving. We've put up with that for much, much too long. And so there's the craziness that we have all endured in the workplace, in relationships, in in our health situations, and in all kinds of dealings with the depraved, right? And so, in whatever context, whether it's at a dinner party or whether it's, at a store that you run into someone and have an exchange with, because it's all about relationship. And relationship isn't a man and a woman or whatever the genders are. um, a relationship. We have a relationship with everything. We have a relationship with our food, actually, if we're allergic to it or if we're not. But we have a relationship with all of our neighbors and our family and our friends, and we have a loving relationship with our pets. We have a relationship with strangers, really. Once we interact with them, everything we have a relationship with even our possessions, you know. And um, so I saw people that were in relationships, but more in the matrimonial sense, and they were being, um, I saw them to be um, destroyed in the court system. I saw them huddled outside of their courtrooms where they were, just having these horrible, horrible battles. And so when experienced what I experienced, and so I wrote about it, and that we live in fear. And because things are taken from us, and even our children are taken from us. And um, so that's what I did. I wrote the letter, and it was about a divorce. It wasn't about World War III. And so it was just crazy. And during that time, I had also written 2,000-page novels, um, documenting testimony and my experience of this whole. It's like a chess game, really. Who's going to win? But it's almost like a kind of a sick chess game, because there isn't a level playing field. And I know that even when I was writing, in these two volumes, um, it was like I would write, and then somebody was on my computer and they'd delete, or I would, that's what it was, or the phone would ring and it would be hung up, or there would be echoes, or there would be static, or just crazy things. Anyway, it was like one distraction after another to keep me from doing what I believe I'm here to do, which was to write those novels and to write the letter and to be sharing this with you now. Um, because we think we're alone. We think that what happens to us doesn't happen to anyone else. And yet, on the contrary, we are all experiencing, to various degrees, of course, the same interpersonal um, challenges and obstacles that have been put in our way. For otherwise, there would be smooth sailing. And yet we are in control of a lot of that. Sometimes we self-sabotage, and sometimes we feel we are imprisoned when in fact we aren't. Sometimes we feel we're stuck in relationships, and we don't see a way out. And yet there always is a way out. It may be very costly, for sure, and yet it's very costly not to find a way out, isn't it? I think so. And so, yeah, I've been punished in many ways when I've tried to expose things um, outside of the court system, which is, my supplements would be tampered with in my home, and they would make me sick. Or, I told you about the groceries, and even in restaurants, how hard is it for someone to go and ask a waiter or someone in the kitchen to add this to the food. I mean, I actually saw it happening. So as awful as it might seem, and as far-fetched as it might seem, I saw it with my own eyes. And I'm not going to go into the details of who and where and what, but I saw it, and it happens. And it happened to me. And so, and actually, a little while ago, I went in with a friend to a pizza parlor. And shortly after I walked in, I recognized one of kind of the local thugs. And I don't really like that word, but anyone who does what he does is, is pretty low vibrational, but he's it was a young boy who was just not um, not being his best self, and yet he really could be. He didn't have to do what he's doing. I don't know how he was recruited or whatever, but he ordered a pizza and then he sat down and he knew I was going to the pizza restaurant, right? Because my phone is a microphone, actually. And so he showed up there, and then he actually sat across the room from me, but kind of parallel. So he was looking at me, and I was looking at him, and the phone rang, and all I could hear was he said, "I already took care of it." And I thought, I bet I know what you've taken care of. I don't know exactly what's on that pizza or what's in that glass of red wine, but because I decided to celebrate. And since I have actually stayed away from restaurants um, as much as I could for a very long time, given what I had seen when I had seen it. So, but that night, I, I just couldn't not eat the pizza or have the wine. I was with a friend, and I just didn't want to alarm him. And they probably just put it on my part of the pizza, and certainly it was in my glass. But that night I couldn't sleep, and I felt very nauseated, and I kept saying, "Oh, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'm going to be just fine." But in fact, my abdomen hurt, and I heard my intestines were gurgling. My I heard gurgling, and my muscles were starting to seize, and my calf muscles were seizing and cramping, and I had trouble breathing. And so sometimes, when we think we have like the stomach flu or something like that, we need to be present and realize that it could be something that we've ingested. And so now I happen to recognize that one boy or young man, but not, but they switch up. And so there are different ones. And, from the creepos that look like kind of geeky people, because they're probably the ones that are more on the computer, to the big muscle crushers. Yeah, it seemed that different ones had different functions, you know. And so this was interesting because there were so many different groups. There was like a Hispanic group, which I think that this young man was of Hispanic origin. So there was, but in other places where I have traveled, there was a Hispanic group, and then there was an Asian group, and there was, I think they were from Colombia or they were from someplace in South America. There was that group. And then there was a Middle Eastern group. And there was a Russian or Eastern European group. And there was like, which was, I mentioned like kind of the local hood group, and I'm not trying to be disparaging. I don't know how else to call them, but yeah, they look like they would be following me, and and there was the older men group, right, and the obvious private investigator group, because they have the little hat on, and they just kind of stand there and stare at you, and let's see, and they have their derby hats, and then like the ones with the baseball caps, and the really low riding jeans, right? I don't know what you call that, but and then you've got like the really scary looking group, and so you know what? Some would go boldly, um, follow me into a grocery store, or follow me into Starbucks, or follow me into wherever I went, or pull up next to me and buy gas, and some would actually go into the grocery stores with me. But then what was so weird is they actually would go through the employee doors. So I thought, oh my goodness, well, there were calls made or something to the effect where these people were now on the ins with the grocery store, and they had full access to the inventory in the stock room so that they could um, more easily tamper what was on my shopping list, perhaps. Um, I don't know. It's just too weird. And so I hope I'm just awakening you to what I've experienced, and not to make you paranoid, but to make you awakened. And so that you are aware. Because the more knowledge we have, knowledge is golden. And the more we know about our situation, the more empowered we are and the better prepared we are in order to circumvent any of this. And so, and I understand everything is a business, you know. People do what they feel that they must do to earn a living. And so, again, I'm not judging anyone because there's karma, and every soul is here to experience life, and that is the contract made between the creator and that human being. And so I don't think we should judge. I also don't think we should allow that to go on and to be used as a doormat for that type of behavior. I think we are empowered, and when we take that position of power, then it goes away, and then they can find a different victim. And so, um, let's see here. Because with my health, I had to watch. I had to watch my what I was ingesting, and with the environmental allergies of my past after being sprayed with that pesticide. So I'm very cognizant of what I eat, and I'm very aware of my body. And so if I eat something that isn't right, I can actually feel it, and pay attention to your body, because you can feel it too, and I'm sure many of you have and do. And I also mentioned to you that I spoke with law enforcement, and they apprised me to the fact that many of the heart attacks are actually the ingestion of poison, of a chemical substance that in fact causes a blip in the electrical activity of the heart, right? So, and that's what can bring on a heart attack. And so, anyway, this is the vibration of many of the people on planet Earth, right? There's nothing we can do about that. We can't escape it, and we must rise above it. And we're being called to embrace who we really are, right? And so, obviously, the three family members in my life felt that I was actually in the way of them getting my money. And so they were going to do what they had to do in order to get that. And, when we talk about our body being so sensitive, I know that sometimes I would eat something and it would feel like there was a hot patch on my lower abdomen, or or um or my yeah, around my stomach. And as someone who studied anatomy, I'm kind of losing words, but I think it's because it's practically the middle of the night here. But it seems as if it was almost a catalyst for a thermodynamic event, a thermodynamic situation, because it was almost as if there was a chemical reaction. And so all of a sudden, a portion of my body would just be very hot, or I would break out into perspiration. And then I would be in pain. And they did find 5 cysts on different organs in my body, like the pancreas, the liver, the um, the bowel, the ovary, and the kidney. And so that is not normal for me because I've been very healthy, other than the sabotaging that has been going on. And so and also the chest pain as well. And so that's what happens. That's I had that with the environmental allergies, with the pesticide. And so when we are exposed to a deleterious substance, a pesticide or something like that, a poison, well, they're both the same, really. And so that does create um, cardiac issues. And so, well, I just told you that, didn't I? Yes, because that's what law enforcement told me. And so, sometimes we have to use our intuition, and we have to take better care of ourselves. When I would go to a cardiologist and I would tell him that I was having this chest pain, even then, I didn't even put it together, although I suspected, because it would be right after I ate. So, but I just couldn't imagine anyone doing that. Innocent little Maria had to kind of wake up. And, I was being asked, it was a lesson for me. I was being asked to exercise discernment, right? And so, when we think of all the doctors that take that Hippocratic oath, right, of doing no harm to anyone, of course, we would like to think that they all follow that. And since virtually every male in my family is a physician, I certainly hope that they have taken that seriously. But all it takes are a few bad apples um, to ruin the bunch. Or it can take people who are in fear, and if in fact they were told that this is what they had to do, they just followed orders. And so, oh, this is what I was going to tell you. Um, I just read that quote that Eckhart Tolle had just shared today, I think, on social media, that ego and awareness cannot coexist, and that's true. Um, and so, the more aware we are, we're not an ego. We are just being aware of what's going on. And probably the awareness he's talking about is not even the awareness on a 3D, because um, he's generally talking about something a little more spiritual than that. So I don't really know. But also, because we are on planet Earth and we are in this third dimension, we have to protect ourselves from the ugliness around us, right? Because the ugliness is around us. And so it's up to us to care for ourselves. It's up to us to be empowered and to say, no, I'm going to look out for me. Yes, you look out for you and I'll look out for me. And then we can look out for one another after we are strong and not running, that we are facing our fears, right? And so, and this was a very powerful group, because it seemed as if there was nothing that they couldn't obtain, or that they couldn't buy, or that they couldn't do, which leaves the rest of us in a situation where we're thinking, well, I'd say that deck is stacked against us. Now, what are we going to do? And so it was also that they could instruct, basically, or threaten, any agency, right? Or any company, or any profession, any business, any employee, and on and on and on, right? And so when you realize that you are outnumbered and outpowered, um, it's a very humbling experience, right? At the same time, you're not going to give up. You are a warrior, and you are being called to stand up for yourself and to put your foot down. And for eons, the energy of this planet has supported injustice. And hopefully that time has changed, and that it is a time for us all to awaken and to become more of our empowered selves. And so that's our soul contract with the divine. And so anyway, I'm going to end this now, and I know that you are standing strong in your power of who you are as a spiritual being, as a human being, as a gift from God, to God, by God, for God, in God, of God. Yes. And so anything is possible here on planet Earth. And so, my favorite is, I want a life of smiles, laughter, and giggles. Because when you have that and you're happy, then you're in the flow. And then roadblocks and obstacles disappear, and your vibration is high, and you're so in love with life, and you're in love with yourself. And so um, then you can really have good relationships because you love unconditionally. And you're not loving because you want them to love you. You're loving because you are love. And so the more you exude that beautiful aspect of yourself, the more it just can't help but come back to you. So on that note, I wish you a beautiful, beautiful evening and a great night's sleep. And I love you, and I thank you for being here with me. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.